Okay, so we're going to talk about Rob Dillingham. I truly can say from the jump here, I do not know what to make of Rob Dillingham. The swings publicly on Rob Dillingham, where like people, okay, so I will start here. I am not going to have him as like a top 3 guy in this class. That I can like just about guarantee. Um, I see people say that. Like I see people say like he should be in the conversation for number 1. I'm not there on him. Anybody that has him, in that next little group, I'll hear it out at least, because the talent and the like natural ball handling instinct mixed with the touch is kind of unbelievable. But then, like, for instance, you watch a game like the Arkansas game yesterday, where you look at the box score, he goes for 15 points, 5 assists, 1 turnover, and goes 5 for 13 from the field and 0 for 3 from 3, right? Everybody remembers the end of the game where he drops 11 points in like 6 minutes and looks completely dominant at the end of the game and like takes over. He was really bad for the first 34 minutes in that game. Like he was like pretty actively harmful, it felt like to me, to Kentucky. And Arkansas dropped what, like 105 points or something in that game?
Yeah.
Let me pull up the number. 111 to 102. That was a piece of it. That was a piece of it. And then he goes out and drops this like incredible run at the end of the game where he looks like, seriously, he should be the number 1 overall pick, right? It's these massive swings with him where for the first 34 minutes of that game, he did not look like a first round pick, point blank. He looked like an undersized, like interesting scoring guard that like might be something long term, because you can see like the handle skill. And then you look at the last 6 minutes and it's like, oh my God, this is a top 5 guy, like very clearly. Where are you with Rob? Because I feel like the swings for people are just all over the map and I have no idea what to make of it. And then like you have the moment at the end of the, what was it? It was what game did he give up the terrible putback where he just like completely brain faded and like forgot to box out his man and like completely lost track?
I remember we talked about last time the straight line drive he gave up to like
LSU.
Okay.
It was LSU. That I'm talking about. And then Gonzaga, completely unplayable on defense in that game against Gonzaga. Like they had to take him off of the court for big swaths of that game because Gonzaga repeatedly ran screening actions right at him. And then he has like other games where he looks like he's, again, quite literally the best player on the court. So I give it to you. Where are you at?
So just real quick, where I have him on my board, I have him in the late lottery range, maybe as high as 10 or something like that. So I have not at any point in this cycle had Dillingham in the top 3, in the top 5. I've kind of just played around in that group of, anywhere, I may have had him inside the top 10. Right now I have him like 10 to 14 in that later lottery because of his size. And I want to ask you about his playmaking in a second. But I have notes on his defense. Remember we talked about with Zion, that second and third effort defensively? And Rob is young. He does not give that. I wonder if he can guard, but he does not understand right now the multiple efforts it takes to be a good defender. We talked about on the last episode, Reed Shepherd. Reed Shepherd got lost off the ball late in that game. He got lost. He straight up lost his man on the weak side who hammered to the corner. But Reed turned, made a second effort, and was able to recover and block the shot. And it turned into a positive defensive play. I just don't think Rob has that in his game right now. I have notes from the Tennessee game, Sam, where like the entire scoring package was on display, like we saw at the end of this game. But for every bucket he gave up or he gave one up to Ziegler on the other end. Dillingham is a prospect that when people talk about how bad the defense is, it's not overstated. I think sometimes people overblow some of this stuff, like the limitations with players. It's a real issue. So my question, I guess, with Dillingham is, how much of a bucket is he at the next level at his size? And how much of a playmaker is he at the next level? Because if you can tell me he plays with the ball in his hands in the Kobe White, Tyrese Maxey, Darius Garland, before Spida, obviously, archetype of player, I'm still a little bit more intrigued, even with how bad the defense is.
So yeah, skill. Let's talk about the offense first, because like the skill is just so readily apparent, right? And then we'll get to the defense, even beyond what I said. Offensively, I get it why people are excited about him. He plays at very real speed. Like that's the thing. He is fast and he plays fast. You know, like when people talk about like wide receivers, right? You know, you're a football coach, so this will be fun. When people talk about wide receivers, they like kind of talk about like play speed. Do you catch through contact and continue to explode? I saw this clip going around just even at the combine, right? Of Keon Coleman and Troy Franklin running the gauntlet drill, where it's you catch, you flip, you catch, and then you run, right? And you catch the balls like coming from each side of the field. Keon Coleman ran like a straight line, ran at 23 mile per hour, 22 mile per hour, or something like that. He ran like a 4.640. And before he did the gauntlet drill, people were like, oh my God, this guy is like running this like terribly slow 40-yard dash, right? Maybe he's not a first round pick, whatever. And then Troy Franklin, who ran I think it was like a 4.440. His top speed on the gauntlet drill was like 17 mile per hour. It was much slower because as he catches the ball, he's like swaying back and forth like across the line, right? So the play speed is different. And then like there were other factors, like when you watch Keon Coleman, you know, and this is just me like watching wide receivers, right? Like he looks kind of stiff through his hips to me when I watch him. Whereas like Troy Franklin looks a little bit less stiff, like looks like he can flip his hips, like do some different things. I'm not here to tell you which guy's a better receiver. I'm just telling you like the mechanics of the process of trying to evaluate these guys as receivers, right? Rob Dillingham plays with that real speed. He'd be the guy that is, you know, he might not be as fast, you know, from end to end of the court as the fastest guy in the league. But if you tell me he has the ball in his hand and he's able to make moves and like there are defenders trying to stop him, that's the real speed that he plays with. He's able to play at an elite level with the ball in his hands as fast as anybody, I think, in college basketball, certainly. His handle is super creative. It's sudden. It's shifty. Clearly has like unbelievable hips in terms of his ability to like get in and out of his moves. Really good at being able to use the threat of his shot and his touch, I think, to get an attack off of closeouts, to get to where he wants to. I think he brings so much to the table as an offensive player that is so intriguing. I love to watch him on offense. I think he is like a truly fantastic offensive scoring prospect. And then, you know, he has a great floater game. He has potential to finish above the rim in transition, maybe not necessarily in half court situations all that often. I like how creative he is as a finisher kind of around the basket.
Yeah.
Even though I don't think it always translates again to, you know, efficiency around the basket. Like if you look at his last 7 games, he's shooting 45% from 2-point range, right? Which is not a great number necessarily, but he consistently knocks down shots from 3, consistently has real touch at the basket, on floaters, and then has that creative mindset around the rim. I think what people see, and this is where I'll toss it to you, is that this type of game translates at an elite level toward him playing in better spacing where the driving lanes are going to be bigger. The court is going to be a little bit wider. There are going to be better shooters around him constantly, and you can make things work that way. I just threw a lot out there. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. Like you've said it and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but he might be the best offensive prospect in the class. Like, I think he has real playmaking. I thought he had some nice passes. I think he uses eye manipulation at times. I think he can run a pick and roll and read those things. I think it may even be better than what we give him credit for, because he doesn't always get to operate with the ball in his hands. There's times where Reed Shepard does it. There's times where DJ does it. So it's not even that we just don't get to see it as much as what we could. So I don't think I have a whole lot of questions. Like, there is some questions with his size, I guess, finishing around the rim, right? But I think he's going to have the floater game. And I do like some of the finesse and creative finishes he has around the rim. And you have to have those things and think, even if he's just thinking in that way, even if it turns into being something else. I think what it comes down to is Rob Dillingham's value is going to be determined by where can he get defensively, and is where that at, how much does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, how much does it matter? Because
hold.
Okay.
We're pocketing the defense for a second.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Because I want to interrogate how good he is on offense. So somebody asked in the comments, what is the difference between him and Kyrie? I think Kyrie is probably the best ball handler that's ever lived. I think Rob Dillingham is like a great ball handler.
And at the rim, Kyrie was.
Yeah. So Kyrie played 11 games at Duke. He averaged 17.5 points and shot 53, 46, 90. Rob Dillingham's good. Rob Dillingham is shooting 47, 43, 71. The finishing at the rim is just like nowhere in the ballpark. And the ability to like handle, honestly, like Rob is one of the guys where like you might be able to make a case of it like being in the same stratosphere, but it's not in the ballpark, I don't think, either, in terms of Kyrie's handle. And that's not a statement on Rob's handle. That's a statement on Kyrie being genuinely maybe the best ball handler that's ever lived.
Yeah. And then the finishing at the rim. Like, so yeah, I think somebody said Garland. Where was the Garland one? Darius Garland with more scoring.
Maybe. I get why somebody would say that. I think that's like I'll hear that out on some level. I think Darius has always had better vision. You go back to lower levels, I think he's always kind of had that.
Do you have questions about Dillingham's creation then? Because like, I feel like I'm a little bit buying the ability to run a pick and roll to create along with score than maybe others. And that might include you. Like, maybe you don't buy that as high of a level, maybe.
I think he can score for sure. I think Garland became like a phenomenal, like triple threat, player out of those situations where, he can drive and get to the floater. He can really drive and kick and pass and, hit lobs to guys like Jared Allen and things like that. I don't know that I ever quite see that with Dillingham because he's always been so scoring focused throughout the course of his career that I don't know that he'll ever kind of like hit that like passing threshold. But maybe like, to me, he's more of, people brought up like Malik Monk and Lou Williams. Like, it's more of that to me. Malik has always been like a freak show athlete that I think is like way undervalued in Malik's case. Like, I can't remember if Malik Monk did a dunk contest or not, but Malik Monk like unequivocally should have done a dunk contest at some point. He's like so physical and like strong through his lower half, whereas Rob is like quite skinny. So they're different, but like, to me, it's more like Lou Williams. Like Lou is the comparison to me with Rob.
Yeah, and I actually think Monk passes the ball, like at least current Malik Monk with the Kings. Like, I watch games and I'm like, man, like he's actually creating for teammates and passing the ball, decently well. So
yeah. So somebody brought up Brandon Jennings. Like, Brandon Jennings is a good name, I think, for Rob Dillingham. And I think, again, like, people look at Brandon Jennings and remember, probably wasn't worth a top 10 pick, everything like that. Brandon Jennings like was top 3 in rookie of the year, and then he tore his ACL. Like, I can't remember when he tore it. Might have been like 4th year, 5th year, something like that. But like Brandon was pretty good for a minute there, and like was very clearly like an NBA caliber player. I think it was maybe his 5th year where he tore the ACL, and he just like kind of wasn't the same after that. But if you look at Brandon's first 5 years, he averaged 16.7 points, 6 assists on 39, 35, 79. The efficiency wasn't great, but if Rob can be like a slightly better Brandon Jennings offensively, that might be okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think then it comes down. Well, I know we got to talk the defense still. So yeah, no, I think we're similar with the scoring. I think I'm a little bit higher on his passing, which makes him a little bit more valuable on the offensive end before we get to any of the other stuff.
Yeah, so let's do the defense.
Okay.
I think he's the worst defender as a guard I've evaluated.
So somebody asked real quick, what about like off the ball?
Bad.
And that's the thing, right? Is like, even if you can make rotations, if you can be a playmaker, a pest, like some of those things, he averages just over 1 steal a game in 23 minutes. But I have some positive notes that are like, like he will get up and guard at times, or maybe can make impacts, but it's like, it doesn't make up for all the liabilities. It's not like he's always rotating to the right spot and communicating and those type of things. That's kind of what you need him to do if he's going to be hunted with mismatches and kind of struggle on the ball, especially.
There are a few moments where like he'll really get up and guard somebody on the ball.
Yes. Yeah.
And like he very clearly has the quick twitch like speed to stay in front and be able to like make life miserable for that person. He doesn't do it often. And I think he's horrible in screens. Like I think he just the problem is that second and third effort, like you said, if he gets behind the play, he just quits. It feels like when I watch him. If he gets behind the play, he's just like going to stop playing kind of deal. And that's what needs to improve. Like, frankly, that's something that could improve in the next week.
Yeah.
Like just play harder. If you get clipped on a screen, try and fight back, like get back into the play. Do that. And like you drastically increase your chances of playing more minutes in the NCAA tournament. Like him personally, like Kentucky wouldn't be able to take him off the court in that case. And B, you increase Kentucky's chances to win a title. If you would just give second and third efforts fighting over screens consistently, it would be a huge benefit, I think. It would be an enormous, enormous benefit, I think, to Kentucky.
Yeah, and the thing is, he doesn't have like the size, but he does have some of the physical tools just with the speed and those type of things and some of the twitch to do that, like to get back in the play. And maybe it's not blocking a shot, but maybe it's he continues to chase behind. And when that ball handler exposes the ball, then he gets his hand there and he knocks it away. So yeah, we'd go, man.
Or just like make him feel you and like cut off the angle, like going backward a little bit. Like
yeah.
There's just different ways to go about it. I think like giving that second and third effort gives the offensive ball handler a lot more to think about. Even.
Yes. Yeah. You just put a little pressure on him. You make him feel you, get into him a little bit. If he goes into his floater, get a hand in one passing lane. Or passing window. So you take that option away. So now he only has this option. And if a teammate is in that passing lane off the ball, now he's limited with his options and then he makes a mistake. So I really, again, I'm sorry to the listeners. I know I always come back to the Pistons, but Jaden Ivey has done this in his second year in the NBA. He was awful. Jaden Ivey was awful defensively.
But Bryce, here's the thing. Jaden coming into the NBA
was better than this.
Levels of magnitude better than what Rob is.
And has better physical tools just with his size.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying like Jaden was a good defender at Purdue. He was good. I thought he was best at Purdue at like guarding off the ball and like fighting through screens and like navigating.
Sure.
Like I remember a game against like Max Christie where like he, had to navigate like all sorts of off ball actions and like kind of shut down Max for that game. Right. He was okay on ball when he wanted to be. He got clipped by screens a little bit too often and like didn't know how to navigate them. But like he was levels better than where Dillingham is coming in.
So like what I'm saying is, but he has learned in his second year in the NBA to make those second and third efforts. And now you see him get clipped on a ball screen still, Sam, but then make another effort and he gets back in the play and he blocks a shot. And so that's where, again, Rob doesn't have the size and, isn't going to elevate the way Jaden Ivey can, but just getting back in the play. And so my point was, you said it earlier, he could learn this a week from now. He could learn it during the pre-draft process whenever teams critique him. Maybe he learns it during his rookie year, or he can never learn it. Like maybe he never picks up on it. But I will say that like there's a chance that some of this gets, I think your argument will be it still doesn't get him to neutral, but at least it's a little bit better than what we're seeing right now.
I think there's very little chance he ever gets to neutral, even on the ball, because he's so small. Like he's just so thin, like through his lower half. I think it's going to be really hard for him to he might be able to deal with the smaller guys. Like I think there's a real value to him being able to deal with the smaller guys, to be clear.
Sure. Yeah.
But in the playoffs, like anytime you're going up against like these big apex wings, you're even going up against like Kyrie or somebody like that who like just really knows how to operate in a ball screen scenario. I think it's just going to be really fucking hard.
Well,
I think it's going to be really hard to deal, like to even like get him. He's coming at such a deficiency navigating screens from a physical perspective. It's really hard to imagine him getting to a neutral level on the ball.
I'll tell you, Sam, I've watched it be an issue for Marcus Sasser. And what was Marcus Sasser's reputation
and
as
Marcus
a defender?
Was unbelievable on defense at Houston.
And he just gets some matchups where the offensive player doesn't even feel him. The offensive player will bully him to 12 feet, and then he just rises up and jumps over him. And it's not Marcus's fault. And like, I'm not even doing this to critique him or saying like he's still going to be a really good NBA player, but it's just a sheer size thing. And to your point, Sasser played at Houston, is older, stronger, all of these things on top of it. And I've even noticed it with him, even in his first how many ever games of his rookie season. And maybe he'll figure it out. Again, hand placement, hand activity, defensive schemes and some of those things help. But like it's tough. It's tough for small guys.
It's really hard for small guys at the next level. That's why it's worth being like as critical as we're being here on this, because NBA teams are going to be as critical as this. Like this is a big thing for him. Off the ball, it's I think worse.
Yeah. Which is scary, right? Because at least you could say I enjoy when I can put in a scout good team defender, right? Like I think Matas Buzelis is going to struggle on the ball, but he's a great team defender and has crazy length, right? So it's not quite as big of an issue. Like Dillingham, God, if he could be good off the ball, that would help so much.
Yeah, and he's again, like it's engagement. Like he just loses engagement off the ball. That's the reality. He just does not stay engaged off the ball. In that LSU game where Tyrell Ward got him for the putback is the perfect example of it. Like there's just not another way to put it. That's what a lot of his defensive tape is like. It's hard, man. He gambles a ton. He like mistimes digs. Like he just like loses track of his man, like completely off the ball. Like if he's in the weak side, he's small. So like if he's weak side, backside corner, he can't really tag and then stay attached to his man in the corner. If you put him on a shooter, right. It's going to be too easy, I think, to take advantage of him off the ball. And oh, by the way, like the instincts like aren't even like totally there off the ball for it to be effective.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, as you said, I'm sure people are going to like not be fans of us going in on this, but it is important and it does matter. And
no, it really matters.
There's
like he's an unbelievable offensive player.
Yeah.
Like truly an unbelievable offensive player. One thing like worth considering here is we talked about like, what if they put back like, no defensive 3 seconds? Does that help him more?
Sure. Because that
where like he could just stay attached a little bit more and like not have to worry about this. Like, does it make it just easier for teams to defend and thus these guys won't have to stay as 1000% engaged all the time on defense in a way to like make it work. That's something that like teams will have to consider in the draft.
Well, I think it also matters who you have behind him in general, right? Like the defensive
Totally.
infrastructure. What does I just see it in the comments? People talking like, what does the team need? I think someone made a good point. Like he could end up being, a guy that gets minutes, or I think Chris said gets stuck like Bones Highland. Like he gets on a team who has the defensive infrastructure around him, but can really use his ability to get buckets, which at the end of the day is value. And that's why we're talking about him still as a lottery pick, is because he is so good offensively. That could provide a ton of value to the right team, who yet again has the right pieces to protect him on the defensive end, or can feel like they can grow him and develop him on the defensive end to get neutral and develop the schemes, right? Like Steph Curry got really good. Like every little guard I watch, I want to be like, watch Steph Curry and how he hedges ball screens so he doesn't get switched. But that's a team-wide thing. Then whoever's using the ball screen has to be willing to navigate it. And like it's a commitment from everybody. And the Warriors are committing to it because Steph is so good offensively. Is Rob Dillingham going to be so good offensively that the 14 other guys and the coaching staff and everybody else is going to be willing to commit to navigate, or the scheme of every ball screen be, okay, Rob's going to hard hedge here, stick with his man so he doesn't get switched out? Like those are all questions you have to ask before you draft Rob Dillingham.
Yeah. And look, like right now, I think he's like pretty comparable to like Cam Thomas defensively. Like I think Cam Thomas is so bad defensively, even still, that like it's hard to have him on the court. Cam Thomas is averaging 20.9 points per game this year. And if you look at any impact metric, like Brooklyn's effectiveness as a team like falls off a cliff when he's out there. He is, to me, a far more interesting prospect offensively than what Cam Thomas is, to be clear. His passing, his speed, his touch, and his ability to shoot from three, I think makes it easier for him to be able to make a high level impact on offense in the NBA. But man, it's going to be hard. Like you better have the right team infrastructure to make it work. And if you do, like it'll work. Like Malik Monk has worked, and Malik Monk like works hard on defense now. Like he at least tracks back and does everything like that. But to me, like, and look, like Rob is ahead of where Lou Williams was at this point in his career. Like if you look, like Lou Williams averaged like 4 points per game in each of his first two NBA seasons coming direct out of high school, right? I think Rob's a little bit ahead of that. But that's, the zone you can fall into really easily if you're somebody like this, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of people will do is they'll hear the names are thrown out and they'll go, well, those guys are still top 3 picks. They're still, like, we're talking top end outcome. Like, what if the offense doesn't translate? What if the passing isn't what I think it is? I've seen some people question his overall feel. What if the feel isn't good and all he is a scorer? And I think that's why I'm more comfortable into the lottery than top 3, is because yes, the ceiling outcome offensively is amazing, even with the defensive limitations. But what if he doesn't make those offensive outcomes with those defensive limitations? Then you're really struggling to find a role for him. It's definitely coming off the bench as just a, 7th man bucket getter who, you can only play so many minutes, and come playoffs, it's even less, right? So there, we talk comps and outcomes. You have to consider the risk reward of what happens if they don't hit that. What if something doesn't play out? And with all of these guys, right? Like with every single player.
I think the NCAA tournament for Rob Dillingham is going to play an enormous role in where he gets picked. If it's to the point where Cal feels like I can't have him on the court, and there have been moments this year where, like the Gonzaga game particularly, it's felt like Cal feels like he can't have him on the court, it's going to be harder.
Yeah.
And those are high leverage, really important games where everybody's watching. That will hinder him. But if he goes out and just like completely wrecks, which I think there's a chance of it because he's so good offensively, he could really jump and like really help himself. I don't know where Rob Dillingham's going to get drafted. Like I'm somebody that does this professionally, and it's almost like not worth projecting right now. Like it's really anywhere from like top 5 to just outside of the lottery. Like if it goes poorly in the tournament, where Cal feels like it's a struggle to play him. I think Kentucky is as talented as any team in the country, and I think Cal, frankly, probably needs to like live with the defensive issues that he brings to the table. I think getting a Vicic has helped, at least from like a rim protection perspective. He can only play probably like 15 minutes a game in high leverage moments, but like having him around has been useful. Them willing to go smaller, which is something Cal has been averse to throughout the course of his career. Like they finished that game with like all of the freshmen over the weekend against Arkansas, with like Wagner and Reed and Rob and Edwards like all on the
Yeah.
court.
Yep.
That was super interesting to me. Continue to do like stuff like that. Yeah. I'm truly fascinated by Dillingham. Like I don't really have a dog in the fight, I guess, with Rob. Like he's not going to be one of my guys that like I really feel like awesome about. Like for instance, like Reed is definitely a guy like I feel really good about. Um, but like I get it. I get the appeal for people, even if I think they're just like real concerns here.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm the same way. And again, like I think we want all these kids to succeed, but
Hundred percent. Yeah.
like at the end of the day, it's our job, especially your job, to evaluate them the best way we can unbiasedly. And as you said, this matters. The defensive side of the ball matters, especially for him and his size.